Vermis II continues the more narrative pace set by the second half of Vermis I. If you haven't already, please check out my first video on Vermis, as it introduces the entire series and gives a lot more context. In this video, I'm going to briefly explain what Vermis is and then get straight into the story. Vermis is an art book by Plastibu. It bills itself as a guidebook for the Vermis game, which doesn't exist. On the HoloPress website, Vermis is specified as a lore gamebook, and this feels like a better descriptor than either art book or game guide. Vermis II feels less like a game guide and more like an illustrated lore book. We follow a strict narrative, and in Vermis II, the game part of Vermis really takes a back seat to the story. If Vermis intrigues you at all, then I'd highly recommend getting yourself a copy to support the creator. Now, one last thing before we begin. I've had several people ask me if I'd be willing to do audiobooks on the channel. This piqued my interest, but I'm not really sure how the videos would be received. I was considering recording something of H.P. Lovecraft and seeing how it does. If you guys are interested in seeing something like that, then please let me know. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into Vermis II, Mists and Mirrors. We begin at an arched doorway made of what looks like pseudo-human forms, heads and limbs coalescing to create a terrifying gateway. Through the gate, we see a hallway. The bottom of the page reads, "The knells of the bell echo along the endless corridors. The mist engulfs everything." It continues on the next page. "Those glassy eyes that chase you wherever you go are none but your own." This is of course alluding to a mirror, as your eyes follow you wherever you go. Next, we have a description of the glass purgatory. It is said to be a place found at the intersection of reality and illusion. This interstitial realm contains labyrinthine halls in which anyone may lose themselves. There is a cloaked figure who resides in the deepest part of the purgatory. "I've been listening to the whispers in the darkness. They preach about the true nature of our kin. They say, 'Dances without cease, the puppet made of mud and wood. In a macabre and endless dance, it stares at its reflection, prisoner of the illusion. I've torn my flesh looking for warmth, for humanity, only to find this dark sludge. And yet for that brief instant, my eyes were mine alone." Again, a reference to the eyes. On the next page, we have a mirrored image. If we place the image in front of a mirror, we can read the message. It reads, "Our eyes are backwards." The Vermis II on the bottom isn't just mirrored, but is reflected vertically as well. Very clearly, we can see that mirrors play a critical role in Vermis II. Next, we learn of a location, Old Agarut, the undying sun. The undying sun here refers to the fact that Agarut is a desert, filled with the only human sounds of traversal and trade, as outside of Agarut lie places with, quote, "incurable wounds." As of yet, we don't know what this is in reference to. Whatever is happening on the outside of Agarut though, life here seems to continue as usual. Within the description of Agarut, however, we do get one line that may elucidate the outer lands. It reads, "In Agarut, on the contrary, life continues as usual. The living stay above the sands, while the rest lie under them." Perhaps outside of Agarut there are ghosts and apparitions roaming about, above the sands, where they do not belong. The desert is a vast landscape. Agarut is but a tiny portion of it. In ages past, the desert was the heartland of the old world, populous and dotted with immense structures. But now the ubiquitous architecture lies buried in the dunes. There are individuals who hunt for these lost treasures and relics, diving into the past, the bones of the old world, in search of gold and silver. These scavengers scoured the desert, fearing neither curses nor the old gods, yet still in their hunt many pay dearly for the measly scraps they find. One of these stories is relayed to us, quote, "A merchant refuses to buy the relic offered by a tomb robber. The shopkeeper insists that it was an offering to the dead son. When it was stolen from its rightful place, a curse fell upon it. The wayfarer shamefully covers the purple blemishes that sully his hand and goes away without a word, letting the relic fall to the ground." End quote. For those who've already read Vermis I, you'll already suspect some of these old gods, as they are the known gods mentioned previously. Though some have been lost to time, a few still remain, their temples radiating underneath the undying sun, waiting for scavengers who dare search their entrails. The book goes on to detail some of these structures, as well as their locations and when they can be accessed. The solar crypt found via the path of Gervek the Great on the 6th solstice. The sanctuary of silence found in the dunes of silver on the 4th solstice. The dead sun's shrine found in Agarut South on the 3rd solstice. The plague house found in the Valley of the Wind on the 1st solstice. The Tower of Decay found in Kedaret's Fingers on the 8th solstice. The Maze of Ashes found in the Sea of Bones on the 1st solstice. The Hidden Temple found in the summits of Agarut on all solstices. The Solar Crypt, Sanctuary of Silence, Tower of Decay, and Hidden Temple each have a note at the bottom of the page which reads, quote, "You cannot pick bones from this place." The page following these locations depicts the path of the undying sun. On one side is written Fire Sun, and on the other, Pale Sun, perhaps representing summer and winter. Also, the solstices is most likely a changed definition of the solstices we have on Earth, as they represent the shortest and longest days on our planet. Thus, there are only 2. The 8 solstices are more likely to represent something akin to seasons, but I'm not entirely certain. In the following pages, we are introduced to the bone hunters. They are merciless and solitary stalkers, notorious throughout the endless deserts of Agarut. They are feared by merchants and travelers alike. The bone hunters are followers of Gylak and commonly decapitate their victims, offering the skulls to their god. The most devoted among them offer their own heads. If you recall back to Vermis I, there was a class named the Wandering Angel, who was a devotee of Gylak, the halo above their head a grisly reminder of their unwavering faith. The description of the class reads, quote, "These devoted knights are on a journey to join their beloved goddess in death. They have to travel all the way to a sacred mountain and then pull the halo placed behind their helmets to decapitate themselves." A bone hunter is also equipped with similar items to the Wandering Angels. They carry with them a sword and a dagger, black iron armor, and exploration gear, but also a Gylak fetish and a crooked fang. These items are essentially the same as the Wandering Angel's Gylak statuette and snake fang. The bone hunters, despite their shared devotion to Gylak, exhibit diverse methods in satisfying their god's dark desires. Their ranks include opportunistic bandits who sacrifice their victims' bodies after robbery, those who delight in widespread slaughter, and others who plunder ancient sand-choked tombs for bones to adorn Gylak's altars. A notable lack of social cohesion exists among the hunters. Many are quick to kill any they encounter, regardless of their deity. unless they are within the confines of Gilak's hallowed domain. The old god of death and darkness, the two-headed snake, the vengeful one, Gilak goes by many names. When Marco the Oracle afflicted Gilak with the eternal curse, Gilak's devotees beheaded Marco in retribution. One of these devotees, so enamored in her faithful sorrow, beheaded herself and offered her head to the decapitated god. That head is now and forever his visage. To this day, the cult of Gilak has dwindled, though his followers yet remain, and death follows in their wake. A special material is required to travel through the scorching temperatures of the desert: black iron from the pestilent mines. Black iron always remains cool to the touch and is invaluable in Agarut, which reaches incredible temperatures. A nomad rests alone in the dark, the only light permeating from his tepid fire. He tries to sleep but is prevented by the shadows which pursue him. The wayfarer, his past life a forgotten memory, wanders the sands, tirelessly plundering ancient tombs and slaying those who cross him, sacrifices to his god. He cannot remember at what point he, the hunter, became the hunted. He finds brief respite in forgetting of the shadows pursuing him. He fears rest, taking short naps, and spending his waking hours walking. Though his devotion to Gilak gives him courage, he shivers at the thought of what stalks him. They infect his sleep with nightmarish glimpses of unsettlingly familiar and monstrous faces. Though he has never seen these disturbing, twisted faces outside of his dreams, his imagination distorts these abominations, turning his fears into impossible confrontations. His mind conjures images of revenants tearing his flesh and ripping off his head. After another long day, the wayfarer sees a large, partially sand-swallowed stone structure. A cloaked figure, barely able to stand, is resting at the entrance. The stranger approaches the wayfarer. He is visibly shaken. His right arm, covered via his cloak, is petrified. He pulls out a trinket. "I know what thou art. I know of thy kin. If thou art to behead me, I plead thee to hear me first. This relic opens a gate to unfathomable treasures, riches far beyond what thou could need in thy whole life. But I, and I alone, know how to cross said gate. If thou forgive my life, I swear to share the wealth with thee once I discover its exact location." The light from outside illuminates the path within the gateway. Heading inside, the wayfarer comes across a felled beast with a sword lodged in its abdomen. Near the creature lies a heavy crown. The wayfarer approaches the beast, gouges out its eyes, and takes them. He also removes the bronze sword, which has reacted with the blood of the beast, painting the tip red and making it porous. The wayfarer continues to descend further into the temple, feeling the ominous gaze of the stone faces perpetually fixed upon him. Clutching the eye-shaped relic with apprehension, he moves onward, his mind racing to reconcile the stranger's account. Was it genuine or merely a desperate deception? After wandering the desolate temple for hours, the wayfarer heard faint murmurs. His growing paranoia made him abandon his quest. Before turning back, however, a unique archway drew his gaze. Before we continue the wayfarer's story, we learn about the Goblin Queen. The self-proclaimed Queen of the Goblins, formerly consort to the great citadel's king, murdered her husband and fled, establishing her own kingdom and castle built on the subservience of fearful creatures. She bore 2 daughters, a beautiful princess with argent locks and jade skin, and a grotesque cursed child perceived as divine retribution, who was chained in a well by the queen and fed the flesh of serfs. The gentle princess developed an affection for the creatures and led a successful rebellion, culminating in her mother's death as she was thrown into the well, fed to her own child. From the ashes of the queen's rule, the Green Sun Kingdom rose, led by the princess and her knights, who vowed never to unjustly spill goblin blood again. Passing under the arch, the wayfarer finds himself in a room with many pillars. The odd mumbling from before turns into an echoing melody. In the chamber, a large mirror stands. Skeletons are piled at the base of surrounding pillars. The wayfarer draws his sword as the music suddenly stops. Though he's seen many marvels, he has never come across a mirror, and the reflection surprises him. Quickly realizing what it is, he lowers his guard and approaches the mirror. A disturbing detail is shared by all the skeletons. Despite the rotting flesh, their eyes remain crystallized, intact, and unsettlingly lifelike in their sockets. Clad in ornate armor, a warrior stands supported by an unusual blade. The armor, which is emblazoned with icons of the undying sun, cannot be removed because of the rusty, needle-like sunbeams fused to it. In the torchlight, the undamaged sword gleams with an intense golden-brown luster. The wayfarer looks into the reflection of himself in the mirror. Tired eyes and gaunt expression. Is this the visage of death or of devotion? He says this while thinking of the many times he has killed. This contemplation, though, is soon interrupted as he notices a huge doorway in the reflection. Turning around, he confirms that the doorway isn't behind him. It is only visible in the reflection. There is a note on the next page which reads, "Only those who observe the world with eyes of glass will find their way into the purgatory." Looking at the glass, the wayfarer backs into the looming gate. He continues backing into the gate until he hears a sound behind him. He turns around. Nothing. He turns back and he can no longer see the mirror, but is instead faced with a wall. On the wall is a symbol. The wayfarer creates a papyrus and charcoal rubbing of the symbol. Again, we take a small detour from the wayfarer's story to learn about Gervek the Great. Once, a giant walked the earth beside humanity, revered as a deity. He shielded humans as if they were his own kin, and countless titans fell before his massive longsword. For ages he slumbered, resting on mountain peaks and in deep valleys, soothed by the songs of birds and wrapped in silvery mist. To this day, his colossal blade remains on the highest summits, awaiting a worthy hand to wield its might. The wayfarer continues his journey until he reaches an enormous chamber. This room is a convergence point for 5 different paths, all watched over by 5 colossal glass-faced stone effigies seated on thrones. Centered in the room and reflected in the faces of all 5 statues is a disturbing figure bathed in a column of light. Awed and unsettled by the otherworldly spectacle, the wayfarer slowly descends the steps and cautiously moves towards the statue. The wayfarer stops before the sphinx, a stone beast whose face, bathed in light, twists into a ghastly grin. He quickly notices a striking similarity. The sphinx's left eye is an exact match for the relic in his possession, while the right socket is empty. Reaching into his pocket, the wayfarer inserts the relic into the empty eye socket. Immediately, his own right eye begins to tremble. Panic sets in, but he is powerless as his eye loosens and falls. Collapsing in agony, his screams eventually subside, the piercing pain receding as the bleeding stops. It is then he makes a startling discovery. Covering his left eye, he can now see through the eyes of the Sphinx, beholding a vision of himself with a hand over his own empty socket. Soon the room begins rumbling as the platform he's on starts rotating, eventually revealing a new pathway. On the next couple pages, we discover some of the dwellers of the purgatory: the Red King, Flying Effigy, Zurich, Living Cage, Cellar Daughter, and Lord of Worms. We are also shown the guardians of the glass, the scepter, and the sword. The first is the conjoined witch. Its description reads, "The scepter of the primordial glass is a being created by the purgatory to protect its heart. It remains dormant in the glass nest, contemplating the primordial glass." The second is the conjoined warrior. Its description reads, "The sword of the primordial glass is a being created by the purgatory to protect its heart. It was trusted with the mission of hunting down anyone who dared to enter the heart of the purgatory." The wayfarer enters a peculiar space where countless mirrors line the cavernous walls. Undulating root-like patterns frame the reflective glass. He moves forward, his hand trailing against the cold, damp, rough stone, his fingers following the serpentine grooves in the wall until he feels the slick surface of a mirror. The wayfarer stares at his reflection and reaches towards it. As his hand touches the glass, the mirror begins to ripple. In an instant, he is seemingly transported, now on his knees before an enormous fountain. Drawn by the prospect of fresh water, the wayfarer walks into the fountain. He feels revitalized, and soon he discovers a shiny object in the water. As he approaches it, the water gets deeper. He dives in. A gray hand grabs the wayfarer's wrist. A voice echoes in his head. "To whom belongs thy flesh?" Panicked and desperate for air, the wayfarer fights the woman's grasp, to no avail. A cloud of bubbles escapes his mouth as he yells, "Gailac!" She loosens her grip, allowing his head to break the surface. He gasps, taking in deep breaths, before swimming towards the fountain's edge. As he reaches the edge, he hears water splashing behind him. Turning around, he is met with the visage of a great snake, releasing a terrible hiss. The wayfarer tries to swallow his fear and reaches for his sword. The snake, noticing, lunges at him. Upon defeating the snake, you have a chance of obtaining monstrous bones or a shiny amulet. The water turns red with the blood of the beast, but the wayfarer finds that he did not leave the battle unscathed. His left arm is gone. Discovering his dire situation, he prays, "I will not leave this place alive. Gailac, have mercy on this poor servant." Submerging himself in the water to alleviate his pain, he soon begins to hear the deep tolling of bells in the distance. The sound gets louder and louder until it is unbearable. Then a mist begins to surround him. The wayfarer is again transported. He finds himself in front of the mirror, the one he had touched before being transported to the fountain. And his arm had returned, as if what happened was nothing but a bad dream. Although when he checks his right eye, he finds that it's still missing. The wayfarer continues through the misty forest of mirrors. He sees reflections of not only himself, but of ominous figures. He sees the Bodak, the Chevalier, the bones, the torso, the wound, the cursed one, the grin, the marionette, the petrified one, the other bones, the twisted visage, the door, the ceremony, the landscape, and the affliction. The wayfarer hears the unsheathing of a blade behind him. About facing, he finds a lunging shadow from a mirror. Though the wayfarer is terrified of shadows, he fights for his life. Looking into the sockets of the shadow, he sees terrified eyes. As he fights the shadow, he finds that it is mimicking his movements. Eventually, the wayfarer tires of the battle, deciding he needs to end the fight quickly. He gathers the last of his strength for one terrific strike. The wayfarer enters a circular chamber with a small central room after traversing the corridor. Finding the inner room empty, he is startled by a whistle from behind. He spins around to discover a familiar, frustrating sight. His path of entry has vanished. Annoyed, the wayfarer begins to circle the room, searching the outer walls for an exit. It is only after a period of fruitless searching that a small flash of light near the entrance of the inner room catches his attention. Peeking into the room again, the wayfarer sees it is now square, with a small mirror on the far wall. It was the reflection of his own torch which had startled him before. Entering cautiously, his eyes fixed on the mirror, his sabaton strikes a small metallic object that skitters to the center of the floor. He steps closer and kneels to inspect it. It is a peculiar-looking whistle. After dusting it off, the wayfarer notices an inscription. "Whistle and I shall come to thee." The whistle is in poor condition and unusually cold to the touch. We are then told a story about the whistle. The strange, dread-inducing whistle had an immediate effect. When it was first blown, the birds fell silent. The second time, the dogs began to bark. And the third time, the whistling escalated into a shrill scream that sent shivers down his spine. Though the peasant dismissed ghost stories, the intense fear the sound caused him led him to bury the whistle so it could never be used again. Despite burying the object, the peculiar memory clung to his mind, and he became convinced something was pursuing him. Since the day he blew the whistle, his nights were tormented by awful nightmares, leaving him drenched in sweat and deprived of rest. The terror reached a climax during a violent moonless storm. A visitor arrived, knocking on his door. With the first knock, the squall suddenly subsided. With the second, the dogs barked, and with the third, "Who is there?" he stammered, his voice trembling. A brief silence followed, broken by a loud, piercing whistle that instantly chilled his blood. After traversing the room once more, there suddenly came a beam of light from the doorway. Peering in, the wayfarer saw a staircase ascending. He started climbing cautiously, and soon felt a soft wind caress his face. He inhaled deeply, gasping as clean, fresh air filled his lungs. Astonished, the wayfarer scrambled up the remaining steps. The breeze intensified, and the light grew blinding. A profound sense of relief and joy flooded him as he began to hear the distinct sound of nearby birdsong. Upon reaching the summit, the wayfarer stopped, mesmerized by the immense and unknown land stretching before him. Perched on the towering, ruined castle's balcony, the wayfarer gazes out at an endless, lush expanse of trees. A moment of relief washes over him, but it quickly dissolves into renewed despair. This unfamiliar, vibrant greenery confirms his worst fear. He is far, far from his home. Silence is the wayfarer's only companion as he drifts among the forgotten walls, the wind's whistle threading through the stones. The ancient site's tranquility gradually soothes his tormented spirit, inspiring optimistic visions of a fresh start, a new path, and a chance to atone for his brutal past. Yet the wayfarer eventually recognizes his entrapment. The balcony offers no escape. The castle wall lacks doors, and its windows are out of reach. Climbing up seems impossible, and scaling down the balcony wall even more so. Humbled by this realization, the wayfarer resigns himself to aimlessly pacing his stony confinement. That night, the wayfarer gazed at the starry night sky for the first and last time. He had no dreams at all. The wayfarer is jarred awake by the familiar, violent clatter of distant swords. He rises and traces the noise, following it back to the doorway that once led out of the glass purgatory. Peering through, he discovers the stairway has transformed, now spiraling downward into the castle depths. Rushing down the coiling steps, the sound of battle intensifies. The moment he reaches the bottom, a massive, grotesque severed head rolls to a stop at his feet, and an immediate profound silence descends. The creature's massive headless body remains perfectly still, a gruesome, macabre statue. The exhausted knight let her longsword fall to the floor with a loud clang. Unable to remain standing, she too collapses. The knight, although visibly wounded, tries to rise to her feet again, using her sword as support. As soon as she hears the wayfarer's steps, she speaks with a soft yet firm voice, while she tries to hide her obvious exhaustion and grave wounds. "Who goes there? If what thou look for is death, then fear not and approach. I am far from defeated. Thou can go search for thy precious carrion somewhere else. I have not reached this accursed place and given death to this wretched beast to end like this. Whatever thou art, I do not." The fallen knight's blood seeps from a dented helmet onto the cobblestones. Her longsword is too heavy for the wayfarer, and her armor appears ready to crumble. Finding nothing else of value on her person, the wayfarer continues his journey. He soon reaches the main gate. Slipping through the opening, he's immediately struck by the sight of a majestic sequoia forest, an environment utterly foreign to him. A shiver runs through him at the sound of dry leaves and branches crunching underfoot. The wayfarer is utterly captivated by the new world unfolding before his eyes. The Eclipse Towers are age-old sacred monuments built with the purpose of pursuing enlightenment. Although they have been sealed for time immemorial, it is a known fact that devotees continue to reside within their walls. In fact, the chanting of mantras can still be heard emanating from some of them. Architecturally, all the towers share a uniform design, tremendous chimney-like structures that reach as far into the earth as they do into the sky. There are many residents of the Eclipse Towers. Among them are the abyssal devotees, who have lost their minds in their search for enlightenment and have begun consuming other devotees. There are seekers of light, not a threat, but constantly murmuring despite their deep sleep. There are chrysalid devotees who have found enlightenment and achieved a higher form. Staying near them will drain your sanity. Awakened devotees have awoken their minds as their body loses all function. Staring into their light causes instant insanity. The enlightened are similar, but they have essentially lost their bodies. They produce a constant whistle, which causes nausea and can project images into people's minds. And finally, we have touched by the light. These are the very few devotees who have been touched by the light and turned into floating spheres. They cannot be destroyed, but are not a threat. Tormented by the image of his eye lying at the Sphinx's feet, the wayfarer struggles as the setting sun bathes the forest in an amber glow, his body resisting his attempt to close his left eye. The sheer terror of confirming that a piece of him was still trapped at the accursed statue was enough to prevent him from trying again. Even though he had traveled a great distance, as the light faded entirely, he turned his attention to finding a safe place to shelter for the coming night. The wayfarer walked through the dense forest until he encountered a massive stone entrance emerging from the earth. Inside, lush stone steps disappeared into the darkness. He began his descent, his hand tracing the green growth on the damp walls, leaving his rough palm wet with dew. A sweet scent filled the air. By the time he reached the bottom of the staircase, the sound of distant chants was unmistakable. The wayfarer enters a vast chamber where a group of gaunt, dark-robed hooded figures abruptly halt their chanting, turning to face him in unnerving silence. From the rear of the assembly, an unsettling effigy, ascends. It fixes its gaze on the wayfarer before letting out a deafening shriek, at which signal the hooded figures charge. The effigy and the robed figures are described. We have Ogul's Eye, a being born from Ogul's will to lead his followers. Cantor Acolyte, they lack physical strength. Their only function is to take part in the rites of Ogul. Sorcerer Acolyte, their spells temporarily blind or deafen their victims. Assassin Acolyte, armed with smoke daggers, their attacks can pierce organs while leaving no external injuries. And Martyr Acolyte, they stay close to the eye of a goal, shielding the creature with their own bodies. A figure gesticulates, murmuring words and pointing directly at the wayfarer. The room instantly falls into a heavy silence. Before the wayfarer can react, cold, bony hands erupt from the crowd, grabbing and scratching at his armor, their unnatural strength denting the metal. Overwhelmed, the wayfarer struggles in vain to draw his sword, his own screams unheard even by himself. In desperation, he grasps a hidden dagger and plunges it into one of the robed figures. The acolyte instantly dissolves into a dense cloud of black smoke that dissipates into the air. One by one, the acolytes fall before the wayfarer. Though individually no match for him, their sheer numbers eventually leave him wounded and utterly exhausted. When the battle finally ends, only the monstrous beast and its last remaining servant stand against the wayfarer. As the final acolytes launch a desperate last-ditch attack, the repulsive monster watches them vanish with each sweep of the wayfarer's sword. With its protectors defeated, the creature begins spinning violently akin to a top. The wayfarer is startled as the body slams into him, striking him repeatedly. He attempts to block the frantic assault with his blade, but before he can formulate a response to the unusual onslaught, the enemy's brittle arms snap. The broken horror trembles on the floor, lying still. Its unnerving eye stares into the wayfarer's soul for a few seconds, until he plunges his sword into its head. The creature immediately melts away, leaving only bones behind. The wayfarer's attention is drawn to a peculiar altar at the back of the room, adorned with skull inlays and shrouded in dark threads. As he approaches, a revolting stench emanating from a large cavity within the shrine assaults his senses. He discovers the dark strands are in fact black hairs, also spilling from the hollow. Inside, he retrieves a distinctly odd sword. Its blade is entirely bound in moldy bandages, with dark hair poking through, and the pommel is decorated with claws and nails. Upon taking hold of the weapon, the wayfarer notes its warm and oily feel. This is the cursed blade, Ogul. Long ago, there lived a fearsome demon, a devil among devils, in the deepest of darkness. Its essence was bound within a orichalcum sword by a powerful wizard, a sacrifice that cost the wizard his life. Over the years, the demon's metallic prison warped into an unsettling, erratic form. Those unfortunate souls tasked with guarding the weapon reported hearing faint whispers emanating from it. Anyone foolish enough to gaze upon the bare blade was instantly overcome by sheer terror, with some even succumbing to a deadly fright. To this day, none have possessed the courage to wield the cursed sword in combat. The peaceful night descends upon the church, its quietude broken only by the chirping of crickets and the soft whispers of the breeze. For a brief moment, the wayfarer allows himself a moment of rest. This tranquility is abruptly shattered by a jarring noise. Loud tolls resonate through the empty chamber. Fearful and disoriented, the wayfarer searches in vain for the source of the persistent echoing knells. As if summoned by the clamor, a thick mist begins to fill and consume the room. Staring into the murky reflection of the glass purgatory, the wayfarer is devastated. He remains stationary, unable to proceed, as water beads trace sorrowful paths down the surface of the mirror. Shattered glass lay scattered across the floor, the remnants of the mirror the wayfarer had smashed with his fist, then violently crushed underfoot. With his hopes equally broken, he retreats to a corner, sinking into contemplation. He checks under his armor and sees the curse's mark has spread across his shoulder, a reminder of his rapidly dwindling time. Stripped of all motivation, the wayfarer simply remains in the corner until sleep eventually claims him. It is the 8th solstice, and the wayfarer is haunted by dreams of Agarut's endless sand plains. The clouds race across the sky, leaving his mouth dry and tasting of ash. Silent shadows watch from the crest of a distant hill. The wayfarer ignores their gaze and continues his journey. The wayfarer, exhausted after hours of trudging through the desert, discovers a massive ruined stone head protruding from the sand. Out of place in the searing heat, the entrance, large enough to enter, is overgrown with plant life. A refreshing breeze gently flows from the dark opening. The wayfarer plunges headfirst into a seemingly bottomless crevice, his face embraced by the cold, soft leaves of fragrant, jasmine-scented foliage. His body descends into an infinite void of darkness, a darkness not menacing, but profoundly comforting, and not empty. Something or someone resides within it. Thy flesh doth not belong to thee. Awakened by the chime of a bell, the wayfarer rises from his dream in a room veiled by mist. Glass shards crunch beneath his feet. Within the confines of purgatory's roof, time and perception, minutes, hours, day, night, reality, illusion, are indistinguishable. The night he broke that mirror, the wayfarer's spirit shattered too. His body now moves like a mere empty vessel. The circular chamber he knew has been replaced by a dense network of corridors, an amalgam that extends and crosses itself like tree roots. As he wanders aimlessly through this maze, he contemplates his fate, wondering when it was truly sealed. His thoughts drift to Gilak, the dead son, and the enigmatic stranger who carried the eye relic. The wayfarer proceeds down a long, winding hallway that grows narrower with each step. Convex glass ovals decorate the damp walls. He notices movement in his pocket. The amulet, taken from the fountain snake, is violently trembling, a faint light pulsing from its gem. As he examines it, the wayfarer observes the light's intensity shift based on the direction it is aimed. Raising his hand, he sweeps the necklace around, seeing the orientation that makes it glow brightest. At that moment, another light captures his attention. A small, radiant orb is shining just a few paces ahead. Suddenly, a sinister hand emerges from the shadows, gesturing over the sphere, accompanied by hushed, incomprehensible words. The wayfarer directs the amulet toward the glowing orb. A brilliant, blinding flash of light erupts from the pendant, penetrating even the deepest shadows of the hallway. Within that searing light, a piercing scream is heard. As his vision returns, the wayfarer first observes a tall, dark-robed skeleton collapsing. The moment its bones contact the stone tiles, they dissolve into dust. The pendant's glow fades and then dies. Stunned by the sheer power of the amulet, the wayfarer decides to wear it around his neck, ensuring it is always close at hand. He cautiously approaches the pile of dusty remains. The tattered clothes conceal nothing of value except for a staff topped with a globe of warm amber material. Holding the sphere up to the light of his torch, the wayfarer notices an insect perfectly preserved within the amber. Continuing his journey, the wayfarer arrives at a section of the corridor where intense light streams from a side doorway. He steps through the light and into a room tiled entirely with polished green stone. Fearing another glimpse of his reflection, the wayfarer is on the verge of retreat when his eyes catch a monumental stone archway. It rises incongruously from the surrounding tiles. The path must be walked. The wayfarer entered a vast chamber of mirrors. The floor was as still and reflective as a sheet of ice, and the entire space was filled with a faint twilight glow. Dust motes hung suspended and visible in the air. Suddenly, an ominous figure slowly rises from the floor before the wayfarer. This apparition floated in the air, levitating a single glass shard between its hands. The fragment of mirror slowly swivels and focuses on the wayfarer. Simultaneously, every mirror in the room turns its gaze towards him. The wayfarer responds instantly, drawing his sword. Determination burns in his eyes as he meets the hollow gaze of his foe, never letting his own gaze drift towards the surrounding reflections. The wayfarer's advance toward the cloaked wight is immediately countered by the figure gesturing around the mirror shard. The shard begins to rotate rapidly and simultaneously causing the entire room to abruptly tilt. Losing his balance, the wayfarer is sent tumbling against the walls and ceiling, shattering several mirrors in the process. Fragments of glass embedded in the wayfarer's armor, slicing his skin as he struggles to regain control. The chamber suddenly stabilizes, halting in an inverted position, which allows the wayfarer to stand. The wight then dissolves into one mirror and instantly rematerializes from another at a distance. As the shard resumes spinning, the wayfarer, battered and weary, prepares for another sudden shift. Surprisingly, the room remains still. Instead, all the remaining intact mirrors swivel to face the wayfarer, engulfing him in a blinding light. His sight restored, the wayfarer finds himself encircled by a spinning throng of identical wraiths. Exhausted and near collapse, his legs almost give out beneath him. He fights off the impending faintness. In a desperate final move, he hurls his sword at the specters. The blade shatters one of the many figures, causing the others to scatter and instantly vanish, leaving only the sound of falling glass. The wayfarer is now surrounded by floating mirrors, with one lying broken before him. Mustering his last bit of strength, he stumbles toward his weapon. As his hand reaches for the hilt, a sinister whisper chills him from behind. "Look." He spins around, eyes squeezed shut, simultaneously clutching his sword's grip and delivering a wide, desperate swing toward the source of the voice. A faint cracking sound of glass follows. He hesitates, then opens his eyes. On the floor before him lies the figure, and next to it, its severed hand still clutching the broken mirror piece. The inner purgatory is a massive spiraling tunnel that descends to the lowest levels of the purgatory, with numerous chambers branching off its length. Its immense size disguises the curving nature of the hallway. The air within is heavy, and the floor is obscured by a dense mist. Ghastly statuettes holding small mirrors line the walls, utilizing never-ending candles to weakly ward off the darkness. When the bell rings, the walls of the inner purgatory shake, and the fog thickens to a complete whiteout, blinding anyone inside. The following pages describe denizens of the descent, the restless souls that haunt the inner purgatory. Demented bones, a three-headed skeleton with a grisly morning star. The living iron, a knight made from the metal of magical weapons. It is impervious to damage from most attacks. It guards the gates of the chamber of the silent blades. The Mist Phantom, a warrior who rises at the toll of the bell, seeking out intruders in the inner purgatory. Bellborn, gargoyles who hide among the statues and protect the great bell tower. Their bites cause petrification. The Tormented One, a once noble knight filled with straw and sticks. He causes drowsiness if you look upon him too long. When unobserved, he will move around. Driven by an unseen urgency, the wayfarer presses on through the tunnel. A luminous breach in the monotony eventually appears, an opening different from the rest. Stepping through, he is met with an astonishing sight, a moss-covered grotto, softly illuminated, centered around a tranquil pond. As the wayfarer enters the cave, he pauses. A fine drizzle of water hits his helmet. Puzzled, he looks up, realizing the grotto stretches vertically beyond his sight. He moves toward the pool under the faint falling water to satisfy his thirst. The wayfarer's hand pauses just as it is about to touch the pond, for he sees the liquid is not water, but an opaque metallic substance. He stares at his rippling reflection before stepping back to sit beside the unusual pond. Nearby, a statue of a woman stands, her features worn away, and her eyes replaced by two small mirrors. In this strange sheltered spot, under the silent watch of the statue, the wayfarer settles onto the soft moss, a peculiar sense of calm washing over him. The wayfarer's fingers sank into the dewy green surface, yet his right hand felt nothing. He looked down, confusion giving way to horror. The curse had hardened his fingers into bony digits. Without delay, he stripped off his armor to fully assess his worsening condition. Contemplating the dire results of his avarice and the subsequent curse, the wayfarer gazes at his own reflection in the pool. The relentless amaranthine markings now creep over his face, a visage he can no longer feel as his fingers trace its right side. His arm, utterly ravaged and decrepit, has been entirely subsumed by the curse. Overwhelmed by adversity, the wayfarer seeks respite by lying down upon the moss, letting time slip by. Gradually, the room's soothing ambiance eases his distress. The gentle rain washes away his anxieties, and his fears melt into the soft surroundings. Staring into the pond's silvery ripples, his eyes grow heavy, and he drifts to sleep. The Fall of Agol. All demons were gods once. It is man who puts crotums on our heads and holds axes over our necks. The wayfarer finds himself dreaming of the familiar but twisted sanctuary of the snake, located just beyond the chamber of offerings. The atmosphere is oppressive. Gloom blankets the room. A sickening odor hangs in the air, and the floor is awash in blood. A chilling sound emanates from the archway ahead, the unmistakable tearing of flesh and the splintering of bone. Against his will, as if his body is no longer his own, the wayfarer begins to advance. A man stacking skulls abruptly ceases his work as the wayfarer steps inside. He slowly pivots, revealing a deep gash across his neck, his head perilously attached by a mere strip of flesh. The creature then raises a hand, pointing at the wayfarer. A sudden sharp chill slices across the wayfarer's neck. For a brief moment, his vision wavers, then abruptly tips. Overwhelmed by vertigo, he watches his own head drop to the floor. Daughter of the Crystal Forest. A frozen corpse hides within the mountains. Her humanity was lost long ago, yet her duty remains. Her promise of protecting her homeland has kept her cold bones wandering through the snow. Awakening agitated and disoriented, The wayfarer finds the grotto dimly lit, the archway leading only into darkness. The light rain ceases, replaced by an eerie, profound silence. Suddenly, the sound of bare footsteps, moving quickly, approaches from beyond the entrance. Without hesitation, the wayfarer rises, gripping his sword, his gaze locked on the archway. The footsteps abruptly stop. Terrified, he stares into the absolute pitch-black unknown. A cavernous voice emerging from the shadows slowly calls the wayfarer's name. It sounds as if it is speaking for the very first time, struggling with every word.
I have a tongue black as coal. I have a crown made of bones. I will tear off your skin. I will feast on your entrails. I will gnaw each bone. Nothing will be left, not even your soul.
A voice from the darkness pierces his ears, accelerating his heart. The bellowed name, strangely familiar, resonates in his mind. So long has passed since the wayfarer's name was last spoken that it has faded into oblivion. Yet the moment he recognizes the name, terror freezes him. His legs buckle and his hands tremble. Hours crawl by. Immobile, the wayfarer's blade remains aimed at the darkness, waiting for the voice to reveal itself, but the silence persists. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the candles outside the room flicker back to life, revealing nothing lurking beyond. Cautiously, the wayfarer stands, ready to move on. The wayfarer advances relentlessly, traversing a misty landscape and engaging in fierce combat against formidable foes. Though he often stumbles, he always finds the strength to rise, for the path must be walked. The wayfarer strides forward, his hand clamped firmly around his sword, the clang of bells echoing around him. Though his helmet obscures his sight, an instinct deep within his core tells him he is nearing his destination. The tolls intensify, their powerful vibrations resonating through his very being with each peal. His gait, once heavy with despair, is now a determined, hopeful march. The ever-shifting landscape of the purgatory has left him certain. This time, he feels he is on the brink of a place of profound importance. The silence returns as the knells cease and the thick fog slowly lifts. Once again, only the wayfarer's footsteps echo in the tunnel. Suddenly he collides with something, nearly losing his balance. After what feels like an endless walk in a single direction, the wayfarer believes he has finally reached the corridor's end. He reaches out, encountering stone, perhaps a wall. He feels along its surface for a door, trusting that progressing deeper into the purgatory is the only way out. Just then, the fog recedes enough to reveal a hooded figure and a massive statue. The statue, horribly disfigured, stands before him, clutching a scepter and a shard of glass. With the broom completely gone, the wayfarer realizes he is in an overly embellished, circular chamber, surrounded by strange statues. Noticing an exit on the far side of the room, he hurries towards it. The wayfarer deliberately avoids the dark mirror, his eyes lightly shut to prevent its glass from ensnaring him. Since his expulsion from the last mirror, he believes these surfaces reflect only falsehoods, intent on instilling fear and confusion in those who look upon them. The shattering of his hopes, along with the glass in that tiny room, coincides with his freedom slipping away. However, his despair solidifies into a resolute determination to truly escape his ordeal and defy the fate this accursed place sets for him. Assured that no exit exists from the chamber, the wayfarer finally summons his courage and confronts the mirror. Staring into the looking glass, he immediately realizes it does not reflect his surroundings. Instead, his image stands alone amid darkness. Fearlessly he contemplates his glassy self, ready for whatever lies ahead. Yet, this time, his reflection holds nothing unsettling or eerie. He simply sees himself. The wayfarer reaches for the mirror, and the cold glass instantly ripples beneath his fingers. Slowly he submerges his hand, then his forearm into the dark surface, as if it is mere water. He feels a cool breeze emanating from the other side. Retrieving his arm, he inspects it to ensure it is unharmed. Taking a deep breath, the wayfarer steps across the threshold of the mirror. Before him, a landscape unfolds that makes the wayfarer feel he has crossed a threshold into another realm. The air is thick with a cold dampness, and an untraceable breeze plays through the fog that is perpetually present. Dominating this misty scene is an imposing tower, its terrifying mass like a slumbering giant whose awakening is only a matter of time. As the wayfarer traverses the misty dunes towards the stone behemoth, he makes a grim discovery. Dozens of small stone-like bodies, resembling dismembered and decapitated human forms, lie shrouded in the fog. The wayfarer, sensing he isn't alone, scans his surroundings, but the mist reveals no lurking threat. He steps around the corpses, a single unsettling observation remaining in his thoughts as he passes. Their heads, they're nowhere to be found. The wayfarer feels a chill as he approaches the entrance to the tower, a gaping maw of absolute darkness. He begins his ascent up the ruined staircase, his torchlight casting brief, floating specks of fire into the deep abyss that seems to relentlessly pursue him. His heart hammers with every step, especially when he has to navigate around a broken section, knowing that a single misstep will mean plummeting to his doom. Metallic wails echoed in the distance as the surrounding walls shook, sending stone debris tumbling from the stairs above. Abruptly, the sharp, thunderous knell of the bell sounded. A piercing pain assailed the wayfarer's ears, and a disturbing image was seared into his retina. A powerful gust of wind laden with debris instantly snaps the wayfarer back to reality, extinguishing his torch and forcing him to lose his footing. He desperately grips the steps as relentless wind blasts follow, each threatening to cast him into the abyss. The onslaught ceases only after the final toll of the bell. Using his amber staff to relight his path, the wayfarer resumes his climb. The bell continues to knell sporadically, and each deafening sound brings with it the fierce winds. As he ascends, the winds intensify, making it increasingly difficult to fight their strikes. Anticipating the bell's prelude, he learns to immediately lie down and cling to the stairs with all his might. His ears ring, and his legs constantly fail. Despite the uncertainty and torment of his journey, he presses onward. Approaching the tower's summit, the wayfarer notices the bell is poised to strike again. This time a light drizzle accompanied by a familiar, morbid scent. The smell of death is carried on the wind. When the gust passes, he glances down and confirms his growing fear. Blood stains his garments. Abruptly, a decapitated body plummets from above, hitting the steps right in front of the wayfarer with a shocking impact. Stepping closer, he sees the corpse is suffused with darkness. Even the light from his staff cannot dispel its shadowy gloom. The wayfarer reaches the top of the stairs, the insistent clangor of the bells having ceased. A new, unsettling sound has taken its place, the familiar gruesome sounds of rending flesh and snapping bone. His heart pounds in his chest. He finally steps onto the belfry. A nightmarish, macabre scene makes the wayfarer's heart skip a beat. A purple-skinned creature crouches atop a pile of massacred bodies. In its bony hands, it clutches a severed head. The sheer brutality of the wounds suggests a fierce, desperate struggle, and the air is heavy with the stench of blood. With a hand that trembles slightly, the wayfarer reaches for his sword. The creature then rises, revealing grotesque injuries, muscle tissue and bone protruding from its neck, yet it remains standing. To the wayfarer's shock, the head it holds is his very own, his lifeless visage staring back. The creature lifts his head, placing it upon his own severed neck. It stays for only a few seconds before tumbling to the ground and rolling to a stop right at the wayfarer's feet. A knot tightens in the wayfarer's stomach as he gazes at the array of helmeted heads strewn across the floor. He recognizes their unnerving metallic features. They are the very faces that have haunted his nightmares and chilled him to the bone. While he's still stunned by the grim spectacle, the headless figure pivots toward him, retrieving a long rusty sword from the ground. Upon seeing the creature lurch toward him, the wayfarer reacts instantly. The monster's movements are erratic, and its attacks are weak and predictable. Seizing the moment as it raises its sword for a blow, the wayfarer plunges his own sword into its torso. The creature doesn't even flinch. Instead, it allows the blade to sink deeper while desperately trying to grab the wayfarer's head. Its leathery mauve fingers clamp around his throat. Though the wayfarer struggles to pull away from the abomination, the creature lacks the strength to effectively strangle him. Nevertheless, its very touch profoundly disturbs him. The emaciated creature drops its sword, using both hands to seize the wayfarer's head. Twisting and pulling with all its might, the wayfarer is repulsed by the being's hideous appearance. Lumpy, wounded skin stretched tightly over bone. Though it doesn't bleed or seem to feel pain, its veins pulse, a sickening sign of life. Releasing his own sword, the wayfarer shoves the monster to the floor. As the creature lies still, the wayfarer approaches, gripping his weapon to retrieve it from the body. Unexpectedly, the restless thing grabs the blade. The wayfarer yanks with all his strength, severing one of the skinny hands in the process. Stepping back to safety, the wayfarer fixes his gaze on the wretched being. The longer he watches, the more the grim reality becomes clear. This broken body is none but my own. The wayfarer collapses to the floor, his many wounds beginning to bleed. A stream of red pours from his wrist. He feels his heart beating, a mix of relief, coldness, and pain. The darkness slowly fades in silence. Above, a gentle breeze blows, and pearly rivers of mist drift across the sky. Kneeling in a puddle of blood, the wayfarer stares at the body he has left behind. Without a head, it is nothing but armor. The wayfarer looks down and peers at his scarlet self. A sincere face stares back at him. This is just me. A single toll. An illusion shatters. A man awakens. He contemplates his reflection, withered before the mirror that started it all. Staring disorientedly at his own starved reflection, his face was a picture of misery. Cracked lips, sunken eyes, and grayish dry skin. He struggled to lift his numb arms from the floor, feeling as if they were made of stone. The mark of the curse was completely gone, without a trace, as were his numerous mortal wounds. He bathes in the serenity of that remote place, feeling unburdened. The toll of the bell still resonates in his head. The man closes his eyes, sinking into his thoughts. There are no gods, no monsters, no shadows, no mirrors, only warm darkness. The Daughter of Ash. The Daughter of Ash was raised in the Voika forest. She is remorseful for having forsaken her home. She carries a tear of the Voika, the last flower from the Voika forest. It stays alive via the life force of the carrier and produces melancholic memories in return. The daughter of Ash also carries a Murgo seed, a seed from her god, which is capable of producing an entire forest in a month's time. She has 4 points in mind and will, 1 point in faith, and 2 in strength. The vessel is the physical body of the augur. The augur's soul is ritualistically transferred into a newborn upon the previous vessel's death, severely straining the new child's body and causing it to wither slowly. However, the current vessel abandoned his destiny, choosing to forge his own path instead. The vessel carries a visage of the augur, a mask which must always be worn. They also carry the soul of the augur. It's hard to tell exactly what this item is, but it seems to be a relic of some sort. The description gives us some more lore on what the augur actually is. It reads, quote, "After consuming a piece of Marco's flesh, the augur received the gift of prophecy and started his own cult. Even though his body died long ago, he lives." End quote. The vessel has 4 points in mind, 3 in will, 2 in faith, and 1 in strength. Host of the Forbidden Blade. For generation the custodians of the sword have guarded the blade which imprisoned the evil one. In the end, however, a foolish custodian fell victim to its whispers. The host of the Forbidden Blade carries, of course, Ogol, the cursed blade. The host also carries a broken oath, a damaged emblem, which, if lost, would mean complete surrender to the blade's will. The host has 1 point in mind, 1 in will, 0 in faith, and 5 in strength. The Pale Sun Knight. Clad in prickly armor, the undying sun's faithful knights instill fear, blindly serving the solar deacons. Tasked with executing heretics' newborns, one knight questioned his duty, his past actions, and the deacon's holiness. The Pale Sun Knight carries only 1 item, the Blade of Solstice. He has 2 points in mind, 3 in will, 5 in faith, and 4 in strength. The Lore Keeper of Noom. The Library of Noom houses the world's largest trove of information, meticulously gathered by lore keepers who know its contents by heart. When one lore keeper found a codex of dark writings, he recognized its immense power as a weapon. Though his 3 questing brothers wanted to return the sacred book to the library, he knew the vile inscriptions had to be destroyed. Since his brothers had memorized parts of it, he concluded that ending their lives was necessary to erase all traces of the dark knowledge. The Lore Keeper of Noom carries a library light, a staff which can be used to cast spells, but is usually just used to read in the dark. He also carries an Eye of Dorvis, a magical gemstone which, when held up to text, will translate it to the user's mother tongue. The Lore Keeper has 5 points in mind and will, and 0 in faith and strength. Parasitic Mage. Parasitic mages, dwelling in shadows and feeding on slugs, crave luxurious lives. They ruthlessly supplant any person, even infant or maiden, striking at the opportune moment to seize the desired life. Some have flawlessly impersonated individuals from birth to death before moving on to a new target. They carry a liar's scepter made of mother of pearl, which they use to transform their shape. They also carry dreamer's dew, a shell containing a sleep poison to subdue their victims before taking their appearance. Parasitic Mage has 1 point in all of its stats: mind, will, faith, and strength. The Vengeful Soul. Born to a sickly queen, the younger, weaker prince despised his strong older brother. When his brother was crowned king, the envious prince attempted to murder his brother in his bedchamber, but was accidentally killed instead. Such was his rage that the fallen prince returned from the dead, consumed by a thirst for vengeance. He carries a royal sword and accursed flesh. The description of the accursed flesh reads, "The child of a woman afflicted with white hives receives the blessing of Kedareth, god of wrath and putrefaction. The vengeful soul has 1 point in mind, 5 in will, 0 in faith, and 4 in strength." The broken heart. His beloved's health deteriorated daily. Driven by a tale of a miraculous fountain with healing waters, he embarked on a hopeful journey to the world's most remote corners in search of the cure. Tragically, by the time he finally returned, his quest a success, he found he was too late. The agony of his loss drove him mad. He carries with him the last wish, capable of healing any ailment. He also carries the opal kiss, a ring from his beloved, whom he failed to save. He has 0 points in mind, 1 point in will, 3 points in faith, and 3 in strength.